Welcome to Literary Journeys with River. Today we dive into Blackwood Farm, the 9th installment of the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. Remember, this is a summary, not the full book. If you enjoy our content, subscribe and hit the bell to stay updated. And don't forget to comment and tell us where you're watching from. It helps YouTube recommend our channel and keeps this community growing. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Quinn Blackwood, a young 22-year-old vampire, writes a desperate letter to Lestat, pleading for help and understanding before he is destroyed for entering New Orleans. He explains that since childhood, he has been accompanied by a spirit named Goblin, a replica of himself that has grown alongside him. However, since his transformation into a vampire, Goblin has developed an insatiable thirst for blood, absorbing his essence and growing stronger with every hunt. Fearing that this entity will become a murderous monster, Quinn seeks out Lestat, convinced that only he can offer answers. In his letter, he mentions his home at Blackwood Manor and his connection to the mysterious Talamasca order, as well as his forbidden love for a Mayfair woman. Finally, he begs for mercy and asks for time to say goodbye to his aunt before being judged. Chapter 2. After writing the letter to Lestat, Quinn remains motionless in his sanctuary on Sugar Devil Island, lost in unease. He gazes at his cameo, a portrait of himself he had commissioned before becoming a vampire, and reflects on his life before receiving the dark blood. Although Goblin does not appear, Quinn feels his latent presence, eagerly waiting for him to feed. Determined to defy the rules, he takes flight toward New Orleans to deliver his letter to Lestat's apartment on Rue Royale. Upon arrival, he is surprised to find the house illuminated and, using his telepathic gift, discovers that there is an intruder inside. Sterling Oliver, an old acquaintance of Talamasca. Driven by curiosity, Quinn enters and confronts Sterling, who immediately recognizes him. The tension escalates when Quinn, overcome by thirst, lunges at Sterling, but just before killing him, a hand violently pulls him away. It is Lestat. Chapter 3. Quinn comes face to face with Lestat, overwhelmed by his imposing presence and enigmatic demeanor. He tries to hand him the letter, but fear paralyzes him. Lestat effortlessly snatches it away and then turns to Sterling, reprimanding him for intruding into his home. The elderly Talamasca member justifies himself, claiming that his only intention was to see Lestat with his own eyes. In a tense exchange, Sterling reveals that the Order has declared war against vampires but admits that he voted against it. Amused and annoyed at the same time, Lestat demands that he retract that declaration and leave Quinn alone, threatening to destroy Talamasca if they attempt to harm him. Sterling, left with no choice, agrees and leaves. In an unexpected gesture, Lestat tells Quinn to accompany him. It is time to hunt and learn to feed properly. Together, they disappear into the night. Chapter 4. Lestat takes Quinn to a hotel where two women, involved in criminal activities, are identified as legitimate prey. Following Lestat's instructions, Quinn selects one and feeds with precision, feeling a connection to her life through her blood. After the hunt, his body burns with energy, but the peace is short-lived. Suddenly, Goblin appears, stronger than ever. He lunges at Quinn, merging with him and draining his blood in an alarming manner. A vision of his past overwhelms him in a whirlwind of memories, trapping him in a trance. Concerned, Lestat holds him and tries to bring him back to reality. When Goblin vanishes, Lestat realizes the gravity of the situation. Still trembling, Quinn begs him to accompany him to Blackwood Manor, where they can discuss the threat of Goblin in peace. Without hesitation, Lestat agrees, and they both fly toward Quinn's mysterious home. Chapter 5. Quinn and Lestat arrive at Blackwood Manor, an imposing neoclassical mansion steeped in history and secrets. While Quinn feels a mix of pride and unease about his home, Lestat admires every detail, from the grand spiral staircase to the elaborate murals. They walk through rooms filled with antiques and memories, as Quinn relives the house's tradition as a place of celebrations and gatherings. They meet Aunt Queen, a charming and eccentric woman obsessed with cameos and stories from the past. The elderly lady quickly wins Lestat's affection as she shares dark family tales, including the tragic story of Rebecca and the mysterious Sugar Devil Island. Despite the warmth of the encounter, Quinn feels the weight of his own secrets and fears, sensing Goblin's presence in the house. Finally, they ascend to the rooms, ready to continue their conversation. Chapter 6. Lestat explores the upper floor of Blackwood Manor alongside Quinn, discovering luxurious rooms filled with history. Quinn shows him his apartment and speaks of Nash, his tutor, with whom he shared readings of Dickens and a relationship of respect and admiration. However, his mother, Patsy, remains a sensitive topic. Quinn confesses his hatred toward her and his fear that he may one day kill her. Suddenly, a disturbance shakes the house. Goblin manifests violently, interfering with technology and unleashing a whirlwind of energy. Lestat tries to protect Quinn, but the bond between them is so deep that the spirit subjects him to a terrifying ecstasy. Finally, Lestat uses the gift of fire to repel Goblin, forcing him to disappear temporarily. Exhausted and shaken, Quinn acknowledges the dangerous nature of his double and accepts that he must find a way to destroy him. Chapter 7. Quinn recalls his childhood at Blackwood Manor, marked by the constant presence of Goblin and a fascination with family stories. Surrounded by adults and visitors, he learned about the ghosts of the house and the tragic story of Manfred, his ancestor who vanished in Sugar Devil Swamp. Through stories passed down through generations, Quinn discovers the swamp's dark reputation and the existence of a mysterious sanctuary built by Manfred. Amid guided tours and festivals, his childhood unfolds in a world of traditions, legends, and spectral apparitions. However, his bond with Goblin strengthens to the point of becoming inseparable. As Quinn grows, his family tries to ignore the supernatural connections surrounding him. Now, looking back on his past, Quinn realizes that Goblin is not just an imaginary companion, but a real and dangerous presence that has influenced his life from the very beginning. Chapter 8. From birth, Quinn shared his life with Goblin, his perfect double but with a disturbing personality. Goblin was strongest on rainy days and, although he accompanied him everywhere, he also manipulated and humiliated him. His childhood passed in Blackwood Manor, surrounded by his grandmother's sweetheart and the kitchen staff, while his mother, Patsy, remained distant. His eccentric and sophisticated Aunt Queen became his refuge, teaching him about the world and the arts. As Quinn grew, Goblin's presence became increasingly tangible and capricious, affecting his interactions with others. When Linnell, his teacher, entered his life, she opened the doors of knowledge for him, but her tragic death left an immense void. Devastated, Quinn sought to understand the fate of Linnell's soul, but Goblin, unable to answer, only expressed his fear of losing him. Chapter 9. The death of little Ida struck Quinn deeply. Her absence left a void impossible to ignore, as the house became shrouded in mourning. At the funeral in New Orleans, Quinn wept openly alongside family and friends. Upon returning to Blackwood Manor, Great Ramona was consumed by grief, refusing to speak. Quinn sought to comfort her, and she eventually shared his bed, offering him the security he needed. Over time, they found solace in their nightly prayers. The loss of Sweetheart brought even greater pain. Diagnosed with terminal cancer, her decline was rapid and devastating. Quinn, Pops, and the family accompanied her in her final moments. After her death, Patsy reacted with anger and resentment. The funeral was marked by sorrow and tension. In his despair, Quinn found in Goblin a constant and dangerous presence, whose loyalty could turn destructive. Chapter 10. Quinn was consumed by fear and sadness as his identity and his connection with Goblin tormented him. Seeking distraction, he explored the attic and found a mysterious trunk containing belongings of a woman named Rebecca Stanford. Upon touching her objects, he felt her presence. Rebecca appeared before him, beautiful and seductive, guiding him through a supernatural experience that left him in a trance. He lit lamps without realizing the danger, sparking a fire that Goblin warned him about just in time. Terrified, the family insisted that Quinn banish Rebecca, convinced of her malevolence. Pops, in his silence, tried to protect him. However, Quinn felt fascinated by the woman and the enigma of her past. Determined to find answers, he took his canoe and ventured into the swamp, searching for Sugar Devil Island, where he believed the keys to the mystery lay. Chapter 11. Quinn ventures alone into the swamp, guided by markings on the trees that lead him beyond known boundaries. Amid the suffocating heat and a sense of dizziness, he perceives distant voices and the sound of a woman crying. As he moves forward in his canoe, he discovers a mysterious house elevated on stilts, surrounded by lush vegetation. A sign at the entrance proclaims that the property belongs to Manfred Blackwood. Fascinated by his discovery, he explores the island and stumbles upon an imposing structure of granite and gold, decorated with Roman figures in a funeral procession. His exploration leads him inside the house, where he finds a luxurious marble table and a golden chair, alongside clear signs of recent occupation. On the upper floor, his amazement turns to horror when he discovers rusted chains and human remains. Among the dust, he finds jewelry that once belonged to Rebecca, confirming that her tragic story was real. Chapter 12. Back at Blackwood Manor, Quinn is met with concern by Jasmine and his family. When he recounts what he found on the island, he suggests informing the sheriff, but everyone discourages him, fearing no one will believe him. Aunt Queen takes him aside and reveals the true story of Rebecca Stanford. Rebecca, a beautiful and ambitious woman, was Manfred's lover, showered with jewelry and promises. However, when she demanded marriage, he beat her and cast her out of the house. Rebecca disappeared without a trace, and the rumor that Manfred murdered her was never confirmed. Quinn realizes that her spirit seeks justice, but he also senses the danger of her influence. Despite the warnings, he decides to return to the island to confront the truth. Aunt Queen gives him a rosary for protection, but he has already made up his mind. He must uncover what really happened to Rebecca and the dark legacy of his family. Chapter 13. Determined to confront the island's occupant, Quinn writes a letter demanding his departure. Armed and with supplies, he returns to the island, ignoring warnings from Jasmine and Goblin. There, he discovers inscriptions in the mausoleum referencing Pompeii and Naples, connecting them to Rebecca's history. Inside the house, he takes photographs of the evidence and witnesses a chilling vision: Rebecca's murder, as she is hanged from a hook until she dies. Trapped in the illusion, he succumbs to the ghost's charms, experiencing an intimate encounter with her. When he awakens, night has fallen, and he finds himself trapped on the island. From the shadows, he watches an unknown figure disposing of bodies into the swamp. Goblin helps him escape, guiding him back home. Exhausted and disturbed, Quinn realizes that he is not only facing the past but also a living threat that still lurks in the depths of the swamp. Chapter 14. Quinn tries to convince Sheriff Jean Fro of the sanctuary's existence and Rebecca's murder, but he is ridiculed. Only Aunt Queen supports him, demanding an investigation and offering to fund forensic analysis. Quinn presents the photos of the island and the Golden Tomb, but the sheriff remains skeptical. Pops, worried about Quinn, suggests that he leave Blackwood Farm to study at Harvard or LSU. That night, as he sleeps, his computer turns on by itself. Goblin warns him of imminent danger. A man enters his room and leaves a letter on the fireplace mantel. In it, the intruder demands that Quinn stay away from the island, claiming rights over it. Frightened, Quinn rushes to wake Aunt Queen, who orders increased security on the property. Convinced that a sinister conspiracy is at play, Quinn knows he cannot stop now. Chapter 15. The island fills with investigators, including the FBI and private forensic teams. They search for bodies in the swamp but find no remains. In the sanctuary, they uncover rusted chains and dark residues. The Golden Mausoleum astonishes everyone, but no one can open it. Analysis confirms that the DNA matches Rebecca, validating Quinn's suspicions. However, the intruder's letter is not handed over to the FBI but sent to the Mayfair hospital. The investigation progresses, but there is no conclusive evidence of other murders. Quinn, uneasy, senses that the danger has not passed. Night falls over Blackwood Manor, and despite armed guards patrolling the estate, the property feels vulnerable. In his room, Quinn sees Goblin more solid than ever. In the shower, Goblin unexpectedly touches him, paralyzing him with pleasure. Terrified by the intensity of the moment, Quinn pushes him away, but he knows their bond has changed forever. Chapter 16. Pops dies suddenly after an argument with Patsy, who confesses that she is HIV positive. The news enrages him, and he collapses to the ground with his hands full of dirt. Devastated, Quinn organizes the funeral and wake, feeling overwhelmed by the crowd gathered to bid farewell to Pops. Patsy, in an act of indifference, leaves for Tennessee to perform, provoking outrage among the attendees. During the funeral in New Orleans, Quinn notices Goblin behaving strangely, displaying more human and complex expressions. Kevin Mayfair, the young priest, offers him peace and faith in eternal life. Despite his grief, Quinn clings to the hope that the sanctuary's killer will be found. After the burial, the house fills with neighbors offering comfort, but Quinn continues to feel a growing fear. That night, Goblin warns him once again of impending danger, but Quinn fails to understand the threat. Chapter 17. Now under constant surveillance, Quinn becomes obsessed with the island. It is confirmed that the remains in the sanctuary belong to Rebecca, reinforcing the theory that Manfred murdered her. Accompanied by a group of armed men, Quinn returns to Sugar Devil Island to open the Golden Tomb. Inside the sanctuary, he experiences a vision of Rebecca dying on a hook, but when he regains his senses, everything has vanished. The tomb is finally opened, revealing an iron coffin, empty. Frustrated, Quinn orders it to be sealed again. Enraged, he finds recent books inside the house and burns them as a defiant act against the intruder. Back at Blackwood Farm, he buries Rebecca's remains and notices Goblin watching him from a distance. Jasmine, his childhood companion, waits for him in Pop's room. Between pain and confusion, Quinn seeks refuge in her embrace and finally surrenders to passion with her. Chapter 18. Quinn wakes up in the middle of the night after a hazy dream about Rebecca. Without warning, a man pulls him out of bed and drags him into the bathroom. He is tall, with slicked-back black hair and dressed in an elegant dark suit. Furious, he berates Quinn for burning his books and warns him never to return to the island. Filled with rage, Quinn challenges him. The intruder threatens to kill him if he disobeys. Suddenly, Goblin appears and attacks with unprecedented violence, shattering mirrors and hurling glass at the man. Terrified, the intruder vanishes into the darkness. Ramona finds Quinn clutching at empty air among the shattered glass, unable to see Goblin. The entire house awakens to the chaos. The alarm blares, and Quinn realizes that his battle with the unknown figure has only just begun. Chapter 19. After the attack, Quinn is rushed to the Mayfair hospital. In a state of confusion, he tries to explain what happened, but no one believes him. Doctors examine him and find bruises and wounds that confirm he did not injure himself. Dr. Wynne Mayfair, the hospital's chief, listens carefully. Despite his skepticism, he admits that the injuries were not self-inflicted. Overwhelmed, Quinn senses Goblin watching him with an unfamiliar intensity. In a moment of intimacy, he pleads with Goblin not to act impulsively. Later, Father Kevin Mayfair visits him. Though he doubts Goblin's nature, he acknowledges that unknown forces could be at play. During the night, Quinn dreams of Rebecca, who warns him of a looming danger. He wakes up restrained in bed after having ripped out his fore in a delirious state. Uncertainty grows. Who is the intruder and what does he want? Chapter 20. During his hospital stay, Quinn undergoes multiple medical tests that rule out any neurological abnormalities. However, his bond with Goblin intensifies. He is finally given a laptop to communicate with him. To his horror, he discovers that Goblin has evolved. He writes fluently and expresses complex emotions. He claims that his anger makes him stronger, terrifying Quinn. When he attempts to calm him, Goblin fully materializes and kisses him with unsettling intensity. In a moment of confusion, Quinn surrenders to him in an unexpected act of intimacy. Then, Goblin vanishes, leaving Quinn in a state of anguish and turmoil. He knows that something has changed between them and that their relationship is no longer the same. Fearing he is losing control, he clings to the idea of returning home. But will he be able to resume his normal life with Goblin growing in power? Chapter 21. Quinn undergoes a psychiatric evaluation where doctors and specialists attempt to determine his mental state. Although they rule out severe illnesses, they consider him a peculiar case. Frustrated, Quinn prepares to leave the hospital and has dinner with Aunt Queen and Nash Penfield, his future tutor. During the meal, Goblin appears unusually tense. Suddenly, Quinn notices a red-haired young woman staring at him. Her name is Mona Mayfair, and to his astonishment, she can see Goblin. Quinn instantly falls in love and impulsively proposes marriage. Mona, amused but cautious, warns him that her family is complicated. Meanwhile, a man named Sterling Oliver, a member of the mysterious Talamasca, introduces himself and offers his help in understanding the paranormal. Aunt Queen intervenes, cutting the conversation short. As they leave the restaurant, Quinn weeps, convinced that Mona is his destiny. Goblin, jealous, reminds him that he belongs only to him. Chapter 22. Quinn finds in Nash an unmatched confidant, forging a deep bond with him during a night of conversation at Blackwood Farm. He confesses his love for Mona and his fears about Goblin. At dawn, Nash reminds him that they must attend the reading of Pop's will. In the lawyer's office, the fortune is distributed unexpectedly. Patsy receives a multimillion-dollar inheritance through an untouchable trust, while Quinn gains vast wealth and control over Blackwood Farm under Aunt Queen's supervision. But the biggest revelation is the existence of Tommy, a 9-year-old boy who is Pop's illegitimate son. Raised in dire conditions, he suffers abuse at the hands of his mother's partner. The news leaves Quinn deeply disturbed, making him question his grandfather's life and his own destiny. Chapter 23. Quinn returns to Blackwood Manor, but the news that Nash plans to leave devastates him. When confronted, Nash confesses his homosexuality, something Quinn had already suspected. However, he understands that Nash's resignation is not due to his orientation but rather what he has perceived in Quinn. They agree to set boundaries to maintain their teacher-student relationship, and Nash stays. After a moment of introspection, Quinn feels drawn by Rebecca's presence, which unsettles him. On impulse, he jumps into the old Mercedes and drives to New Orleans to see Mona. Upon arriving at the Mayfair house, she greets him urgently, insisting that they must leave immediately. They flee together, and as Quinn admires her in fascination, Mona reveals that she always knew he would come, as she possesses supernatural abilities. Their connection is undeniable, and Quinn surrenders completely to her magnetism. Chapter 24. Quinn and Mona take refuge in a hotel in the French Quarter, where their desire erupts without restraint. They surrender to each other completely, exploring the intensity of their attraction. In a moment of vulnerability, Mona hints that her family closely watches over her and that her life is far from ordinary. Completely captivated by her beauty and charm, Quinn proposes marriage. She playfully mocks him, assuring him that her fate is already tied to Pierce Mayfair. When Quinn mentions Goblin, Mona admits that she has sensed his presence in the room, confirming her supernatural abilities. Between confessions and caresses, he learns that Mona has had multiple lovers, including her own cousins. However, she also harbors a painful secret. She has had a child who was taken from her. Shocked, Quinn vows to protect her and find the child, though Mona warns him that some things simply cannot be changed. Chapter 25. Quinn brings Mona to Blackwood Manor, where Aunt Queen and Jasmine welcome her warmly. Although the house embraces her with hospitality, Mona makes it clear that her life is bound to the Mayfair family. She explains to Quinn that she is the designated heir, inheriting an immense fortune that forces her to follow a predetermined destiny. She also reveals that her family has a dark lineage of witches, with abilities that connect her to the supernatural. In a moment of vulnerability, she admits that her child, an exceptional being, was taken far away, and she does not know where he is. Deeply moved, Quinn promises to help her, After spending the day together, he falls into a deep sleep where Rebecca reappears, warning him that an evil presence lurks in Blackwood Manor. Upon waking, Quinn finds Goblin watching him coldly, warning him that Mona will hurt him. Trapped between his feelings and his visions, Quinn feels that his fate is at stake. Chapter 26. Quinn and Mona spend an afternoon exploring Blackwood Farm, delving into the house's history. As they walk, Quinn fully opens up to Mona, sharing details about Goblin, his life, and the dark secrets of the swamp. Mona listens with fascination and reveals her own story, shaped by a difficult childhood and her destiny as the heiress of the Mayfair fortune. Enchanted by the sanctuary on Sugar Devil Island, she insists on visiting it, but Quinn prefers to wait until the next day. Together, they reflect on spirits and ghosts, debating their nature and organization. Their connection deepens, and Quinn feels he has found a truly unique companion in Mona. However, the looming danger in the swamp remains, where a mysterious intruder continues to threaten his home and his life. Chapter 27. During dinner at Blackwood Manor, Quinn senses the presence of Rebecca, a ghost from his past, and struggles against the panic she instills in him. The evening is abruptly interrupted by the arrival of a limousine carrying the Mayfair family. Rowan, Michael, and Ryan have come to take Mona back home, insisting that she must return. Mona resists, but the weight of her family and her obligations forces her to comply. Before leaving, she and Quinn promise to reunite, planning an escape to Europe. Aunt Queen warns Quinn about the dark history of the Mayfairs and their influence. However, he remains determined to be with Mona, disregarding the rumors of madness and curses surrounding her family. Meanwhile, Goblin watches in silence, growing more distant, and Quinn fails to see the danger closing in on him and his love for Mona. Chapter 28. That night, Goblin unsettles Quinn, warning him of a hostile presence. Soon, the mysterious intruder appears, overpowering him with force and imposing a deal to share the sanctuary. In exchange for sparing him, Quinn must restore the place to luxury and splendor according to his captor's wishes. Although Quinn hates and fears the intruder, the proposition fascinates him. After the encounter, he decides to move forward with the restoration, drafting a detailed plan. Goblin, growing more distant, warns him that something terrible will happen, but Quinn ignores him. His thoughts are consumed by Mona and their future together. Unaware, he is stepping into a dangerous game with forces he barely understands. As dawn approaches, Quinn still believes himself invincible, unable to foresee that his world is about to collapse. Chapter 29. Quinn sets out to clean the sanctuary, enlisting Alan's help to remove the rusted chains that bind the place. After burying them alongside Rebecca's remains, he feels an eerie sense of peace. Later, he visits Terry Sue, a distant relative living in dire conditions with her children. Upon arriving at their rundown trailer, he is confronted with the neglect and abuse the children endure. Among them is Tommy, a bright and artistically gifted boy who finds solace in books to escape his harsh reality. Moved by his situation, Quinn gives him money and promises to help. Later, he contacts Aunt Queen and a lawyer to arrange for a new home and a better life for them. However, as he leaves, Tommy unexpectedly asks him about Atlantis, sparking an inexplicable connection between them. The idea of making Tommy his protege begins to take shape. Chapter 30. Madly in love with Mona, Quinn arrives at the Mayfair mansion, determined to take her away. However, as he crosses the gate, he is met by an enigmatic man, Uncle Julian. With an air of antiquated elegance and a supernatural presence, he invites Quinn into the garden and reveals a shocking secret. Quinn is a direct descendant of the Mayfairs, the result of a long-buried deception orchestrated by his family. Moreover, Julian warns that he cannot be with Mona, as their shared bloodline and ability to see spirits doom them to a dangerous inheritance. Confused, Quinn demands to see Mona, but just then, Rowan and Michael appear, interrupting the conversation. When he turns back, he discovers that Julian has vanished. Stunned, he realizes he has been speaking to a ghost. His heart pounding, he tries to explain what just happened, but the knowing looks of the Mayfairs make it clear. His fate has just been irrevocably altered. Chapter 31. Quinn is taken inside the Mayfair mansion, where Rowan and Michael reveal the truth about Mona. Her health is in grave danger, as her body can no longer endure pregnancies. Each loss weakens her and brings her closer to death. Desperate, Quinn promises to stay by her side no matter what. Later, he is finally allowed to see her. They lock themselves in her room, and between kisses and caresses, he tells her about Uncle Julian and his warning. Mona listens with fascination, but the only thing that matters to her is that her child is still alive. Before leaving, Quinn agrees to visit the hospital where she is being treated and promises to read Hamlet to her. During dinner with the family, Sterling Oliver of the Talamasca confirms that he has seen Goblin, shocking everyone. At the end of the night, Michael embraces Quinn warmly, but his farewell carries a warning. His love for Mona is doomed. Chapter 32. Upon returning to Blackwood Manor, Quinn encounters a mysterious guest, Petronia. Androgynous and eerily beautiful, she feels strangely familiar. Immediately, Quinn recognizes her as the same figure who attacked him and threw bodies into the swamp. Enraged, he confronts her, but Petronia mocks him and easily reads his mind. In cryptic remarks, she confesses that in another life, she was a slave in ancient Pompeii and witnessed its destruction. As she speaks, Quinn is transported to that tragedy, experiencing the fire and chaos as if he were truly there. Goblin intervenes and, terrified, whispers to him that Petronia is not alive. Quinn explodes in anger, but Aunt Queen, fascinated by the stranger's story, reprimands him. Unable to convince her of the danger, Quinn withdraws, exhausted and more certain than ever that Petronia is a real threat. Yet, the knight still holds secrets he has yet to uncover. Chapter 33. Quinn invites Sterling Oliver to Blackwood Manor to discuss Petronia. During their meal, he recounts everything that has happened, from his encounter with the mysterious being to the strange energy surge he felt upon touching her. After listening intently, Sterling advises him to stay away from Petronia and Sugar Devil Island. He also suggests that Quinn take advantage of Aunt Queen's desire to travel to Europe and leave as soon as possible. Quinn is reluctant to part from Mona, but when Sterling reveals that his aunt's health is fragile and that this will be her last trip, he cannot refuse. They plan to depart in the coming days, ensuring that the restoration of the sanctuary continues without workers after sunset. Later, during a walk, Sterling warns him to keep his connection to Tommy a secret, as Petronia could use it against him. Chapter 34. Quinn convinces Aunt Queen to bring Tommy along to Europe. With cash in hand, he heads to Terry Sue's trailer and offers to take the boy with them. Terry Sue accepts without resistance, and with Tommy's birth certificate secured, Quinn returns home. Before leaving, he reviews the restoration plans for the sanctuary and gives final instructions to Alan. As evening falls, unease washes over him, and the lack of news from Mona torments him. Determined to see her, he arranges a dinner in New Orleans. Upon arriving at the Grand Lumineer, Mona runs into his arms, fragile but full of love. They confess their devotion and plan to stay in touch through letters and emails. Later, in her room, Quinn witnesses her being fitted with a catheter, forcing him to confront the reality of her illness. They spend the night together in tenderness and promises, unaware that their separation will last more than 3 years. Chapter 35. Quinn, Aunt Queen, Nash, and Tommy embark on a journey that extends for 3 years. They travel across Europe, visiting castles and museums while Aunt Queen's health declines. Tommy proves to be a prodigy, absorbing knowledge with remarkable intensity. However, the most shocking event occurs during their initial flight. Goblin disappears. Despite Quinn's efforts to hold on to him, the spirit dissolves into nothingness. Back at Blackwood Manor, his absence manifests violently when all the glass in the house shatters in a furious outburst. Through messages on his computer, Quinn attempts to calm him and maintain contact. Meanwhile, Mona continues to send letters and emails filled with love, though her health remains uncertain. Over the years, the restoration of the sanctuary progresses, but Quinn senses that Petronia secretly inhabits it. Finally, in Pompeii, a nightmare confirms his worst fear. She is still watching him. Chapter 36. After 3 years, Quinn returns to Blackwood Manor. Overwhelmed with emotion, he reunites with Jasmine, Clem, and Alan. But the greatest surprise is discovering that Jerome, Jasmine's son, is also his own. Before he can process this revelation, he is faced with another harsh reality. Mona is too ill to see him. Michael assures him that she has requested to be kept away from him, leaving Quinn devastated. Despite his sorrow, life at Blackwood Manor continues. That night, driven by a mix of curiosity and defiance, he decides to visit the sanctuary. Ignoring Sterling's warnings and Aunt Queen's concerns, he ventures into the swamp armed with a gun, a flashlight, and a knife. Upon arrival, he finds the sanctuary restored, glowing, and flourishing. Waiting at the entrance with an inscrutable expression is Petronia. Unaware, Quinn is about to step across the threshold of his final destiny. Chapter 37. Quinn arrives at the sanctuary and follows a paved path leading up the stairs. At the top, Petronia stands bathed in golden light. Her appearance has changed. Her black hair cascades like a cape. Her red lips contrast against her pale skin, and her golden nails gleam under the dim glow. She playfully invites him inside, assuring him that, at least for this night, she does not intend to torture him. Inside, Quinn is captivated by the sanctuary's restoration. Every detail shines with opulence, yet an unsettling feeling lingers. Petronia watches him with amusement and offers him wine in an ancient golden chalice. At first, Quinn sips cautiously, but intoxication overtakes him quickly. As darkness engulfs him, Goblin suddenly appears and attacks Petronia with fury. However, she effortlessly casts him aside and, wrapping Quinn in a mink cloak, ascends into the sky, vanishing among the stars. Chapter 38. Quinn awakens on a terrace surrounded by flowers. In the distance, Mount Vesuvius looms, confirming that he has been taken to Italy. Too weak to escape, he drifts in and out of consciousness. 2 women tend to him with disdain, complaining that Petronia has chosen him over them. They inject him with an unknown substance and cut his hair, preparing him for an uncertain fate. Later, a young man bathes him with unexpected kindness and whispers a warning. If he fails Petronia's trials, she will kill him. Quinn begs for help, but the boy refuses, explaining that his own life has belonged to Petronia ever since she found him in Venice. After the bath, Quinn is placed inside a golden cage within a grand palace. Gazing out at the illuminated city, he is confronted with a terrifying truth. He has been trapped in a cruel game, surrounded by beings that are no longer human. Chapter 39. In his cage, Quinn meets 2 unsettling figures: the elderly Manfred Blackwood and Arion, a dark-skinned man with golden eyes. As they speak, Petronia arrives and unleashes her wrath upon Manfred, revealing her deep contempt for him. Then, she turns to Quinn and asks if he desires immortality. Before he can answer, she violently throws him against the wall. Weak and injured, Quinn struggles to fight back, but it is futile. Petronia cradles him in her arms and bites him, draining his blood until death overtakes him. In that moment, he sees a tunnel of light and the souls of his loved ones waiting for him. However, darkness pulls him back. Petronia holds him and gives him a choice: die or drink her blood. Too weak to resist, Quinn bites into her and takes in her essence. Then Arion offers his own blood, strengthening the transformation. With horror, Quinn realizes that he is no longer human. Chapter 40. Now a vampire, Quinn is taken by Petronia and Arion on his first hunt. At a lavish wedding in Naples, he must prove his control by feeding on an evildoer. However, his thirst overpowers him. A young bride, enraged by her husband's betrayal, lures him to her chamber. Desperate for blood, Quinn bites her without restraint, draining her completely. The moment her heart stops, Quinn realizes his mistake. Horrified, he tries to undo the damage, but it is too late. Petronia storms into the room and, furious, savagely beats him. She throws him off the balcony and drags him back to the palazzo, where she continues to punish him. Through his sobs, Manfred laments for his lost grandson. Arion intervenes, stopping Petronia, acknowledging his own failure in not guiding Quinn better. Overcome with anguish, Quinn sinks into despair, fully understanding that his human life is gone forever. Chapter 41. Before dawn, Arion takes Quinn to the basement and shows him the crypt where he must sleep. He explains that the sun could destroy him and that fire is the only certain death for their kind. As the crypt's lid closes, Quinn silently weeps before losing consciousness. In his dreams, he sees Patsy and experiences disturbing visions of her death. Upon waking, Arion leads him to the terrace, where he watches the red hues of the sunset. That night will mark his first hunt. Arion explains that Petronia still wants him close, but he himself will be his teacher. Together, they venture into Naples, where Quinn practices the little sip technique before finally killing criminals. Arion insists that he must learn to feed without killing, though sometimes the thirst will be unbearable. At a cafe, Quinn trembles with emotion, and Arion urges him to embrace his new immortal existence. Chapter 42. Quinn returns with Arion to the palazzo, where Petronia awaits him in her dressing room. Androgynous and surrounded by luxury, she listens as Quinn, still conflicted, expresses his horror at the blood he has spilled. Petronia remains indifferent. In the grand hall, she excitedly recounts how she eliminated the thugs sent by the family of the bride Quinn killed during his first hunt. Arion then explains the rules of their new existence, never revealing their nature to humans, avoiding the Talamasca, and never creating new vampires without permission. Petronia warns him that New Orleans is ruled by Lestat, a vampire of immense power. Determined, Quinn announces his return home. Petronia mocks him, but Arion allows him to leave. In a Naples hotel, he calls his family to arrange for his passport and money. Upon entering his room, he confronts his fears and reaffirms his desire to reunite with his loved ones. Chapter 43. Back at Blackwood Manor, Quinn struggles to reintegrate into his family without revealing his transformation. He spends his days in his mausoleum or on Sugar Devil Island, hiding from the sun. He organizes charity events and remains a stable presence in his family's life. However, his spectral twin, Goblin, begins attacking him violently after each hunt. Quinn refines his vampire skills and learns to hunt discreetly. While his family adjusts to his nocturnal habits, he fights to maintain his humanity. Nash leaves for California, and Tommy is sent to boarding school in England. Meanwhile, Quinn avoids Mona, his great love, fearing she will discover what he has become. His only visit from Petronia ends in violence and tears, but she leaves him with the Vampire Chronicles by Lestat, warning him to stay away from New Orleans. Alone and tormented, Quinn realizes that his battle with Goblin has only just begun. Chapter 44. Quinn tells Lestat his entire story, confessing his hatred for Petronia and his terror of Goblin. Lestat urges him to abandon his hatred and focus on survival. But before they can act, Jasmine bursts in with a scream. Goblin has attacked. Quinn and Lestat rush to Aunt Queen's room, only to find her dead. She had cried out Goblin's name before collapsing, her body covered in blood. The family is devastated, and the supernatural explanation is hidden from the authorities. Consumed by grief and fury, Quinn swears revenge on Goblin. Lestat promises to find Merrick Mayfair, a vampire with the power to deal with spirits, to help destroy him. On Sugar Devil Island, Quinn mourns the loss of his beloved aunt, unable to imagine life without her. But in his anguish, one thought consumes him, punishing Goblin and sending his spirit to hell. Chapter 45. Quinn wakes up exhausted and starving, knowing that Lestat has left to find Merrick Mayfair. At home, he finds Nash and Tommy, who have arrived with grief-stricken expressions. Aunt Queen's limousine takes them to Lonigan and Son's funeral home, where a large crowd gathers to bid her farewell. Patsy shocks Quinn by handing him a copy of the will, revealing his aunt's incredible generosity. Jasmine, despite her exhaustion, ensures that Aunt Queen's appearance is flawless. As Quinn approaches the coffin, he notices a cameo placed around her neck by Petronia. He sorrowfully accepts the gesture. Outside, Julian Mayfair appears to him as a ghostly, elegant figure. Overwhelmed by loss, Quinn leaves the wake and unleashes his fury by killing a criminal. Upon returning, Goblin attacks him with a vision of blood and fire, forcing him to relive his childhood until he collapses into unconsciousness. Chapter 46. St. Mary's Church fills with attendees for Aunt Queen's Requiem Mass. Quinn hopes to see Mona, but she does not come. Unexpectedly, Merrick and Lestat arrive to offer their support. During the ceremony, Nash and Jasmine deliver heartfelt speeches. Quinn steps up to the altar and, in a moving tribute, exalts his aunt's wisdom and kindness, considering her death an act of mercy. Through tears, Tommy recalls the travels and lessons she shared with him. During communion, Quinn, Lestat, and Merrick participate, provoking a deep reflection on God and redemption within him. At the Metairie Cemetery, Patsy erupts into hysterics, blaming Quinn for bringing them there at night. Merrick warns of Goblin's growing power and requests to speak with Patsy before she leaves. As the family returns to Blackwood Manor, Quinn sees Goblin more solid than ever, watching him with an unhinged gaze. Chapter 47. At Blackwood Manor, Patsy locks herself in her room while Lestat, Merrick, and Quinn discuss Goblin. Merrick reveals that the spirit is bound to Quinn through blood. Confused, Quinn insists that Goblin has always been a part of him, but Merrick declares that he is actually Quinn's deceased twin brother. Shocked, Quinn confronts Patsy, who finally confesses. Garwin, her other son, was born weak because Quinn absorbed his blood in the womb. He died in an incubator, and Patsy buried him under a tombstone that read, "Garwin, my little knight." Filled with hatred, she accuses Quinn of murdering him before birth. Quinn despises her with equal intensity. In the kitchen, Great Ramona and Jasmine confirm the story. Quinn realizes that Goblin, feeling robbed of his life, has gained strength through his vampiric blood. An exorcism is the only option. Chapter 48. Quinn accepts the truth about Goblin and, with Lestat and Merrick's help, prepares to destroy him. Merrick explains that the ghost is bound to his remains in Metairie and that Quinn's blood has made him more corporeal. To expel him, they will conduct a ritual in Blackwood Manor's old cemetery, where Quinn must build a large bonfire and place candles on all the graves. Merrick insists that the house be evacuated, though Patsy may resist. Lestat hands over a bundle of cash to bribe her into staying at a hotel in New Orleans. Meanwhile, Goblin manifests with increasing violence, causing destruction throughout the house. Merrick, wielding her witch's power, manages to confront him directly, forcing him to flee. Now is the time to act. Aware of the danger, Quinn is filled with hatred for his spectral brother, determined to end him before he causes more harm. Chapter 49. With Blackwood Farm emptied after sending his family away, Quinn is left alone with Patsy, who refuses to leave and hurls insults at him with bitter resentment. Consumed by hatred, Quinn kills her, snapping her neck without even drinking her blood. He carries her body to the swamp and sinks it into the dark waters, letting the alligators dispose of the rest. Rebecca's ghost appears, pleased by Patsy's death, but Quinn rejects her. Terrified by his own crime, he seeks refuge in the cemetery, meditating on the upcoming exorcism to destroy Goblin. Exhausted and starving, he contemplates suicide as dawn approaches, until Lestat arrives. With tenderness, Lestat embraces him and offers his blood. Quinn drinks, experiencing visions of centuries of life and an overwhelming sense of love. Reinvigorated, he understands that he must persevere to face his fate. Chapter 50. Under the starry sky, Blackwood Manor's cemetery glows with candlelight as Merrick, dressed in black, prepares for the ritual. At the makeshift altar, she ignites a massive fire and pours her own blood into the flames. She calls upon Garwin's spirit, pleading with God to bring him forth. A violent wind rises, and Goblin appears, enraged. Believing he knows Merrick's tricks, he attempts to attack her, but she meets him with her full power, commanding him to burn. The fire engulfs him, and he writhes in agony. Then, Merrick unveils a small body wrapped in cloth, the remains of Garwin. Goblin, horrified, denies it, but Merrick insists that this is his true form. At last, his spirit merges with the corpse in a heart-wrenching cry. A divine light envelopes the altar, and Quinn sees his ancestors carrying Garwin away. In a final act of sacrifice, Merrick throws herself into the flames with the child, vanishing into eternity. Chapter 51. After Merrick's death, Lestat and Quinn take the news to Sterling Oliver at the Talamasca headquarters. Devastated, Lestat recounts the events and confirms that Merrick chose to sacrifice herself. Still in shock, Quinn describes his vision of the celestial light and Merrick's farewell. Moved, Sterling weeps for his former companion and promises to record her story in the Talamasca archives. Amid the grief, Lestat jokes, claiming he is in love with Quinn. Sterling respects his vow not to interfere with him. Before leaving, Quinn asks about Mona Mayfair. Without hesitation, Sterling reveals the truth. Mona is dying. Quinn is left shattered, uncertain of what to do. To distract him from his suffering, Lestat drags him on a hunt for criminals in Boca Raton, where he once again shares his powerful blood with Quinn. Though physically revitalized, Quinn's mind remains tormented by thoughts of Mona. Chapter 52. Upon returning to Blackwood Farm, Jasmine and Clem warn Quinn that Mona is waiting for him in his room. When he enters, he barely recognizes her. She is frail, reduced to skin and bones, a ghost of the woman he loved. The room is filled with flowers, and with a weak voice, Mona begs him to let her die there, in his arms, away from the hospital. Deeply moved, Quinn confesses that he is no longer human and asks if she wishes to become like him. Before she can respond, Lestat enters and offers to transform her. With his hypnotic eloquence, he explains the rules and dangers of her new existence. Mona listens intently, clinging to Quinn. Finally, with a look of determination, she whispers her decision, "Yes, I want this." Thanks for watching this summary of Blackwood Farm. If you liked it, please subscribe, hit like, and share it with your friends. Now tell me in the comments, what do you think about Quinn Blackwood's struggle with Goblin? Which Anne Rice novel is your personal favorite?